Hello and welcome to the Power 365 show. Today we have the Principal Group Product Manager at Microsoft, Amit, who is responsible for everything Dynamics 365 sales. Specifically, all the great new features that have just been announced. They're currently in preview, such as sequencing, and enabling high velocity sales, as well as sales insights. Full show notes for this episode can be found at nz365guy.com/192. Now let's get on with the show. Hello, Amit. Welcome to the Power 365 show.
Thank you, Mark. Very happy to be with you.
It's good to have you on the show. What part of the world have I reached you in today? Where are you living?
Tel Aviv, Israel. Recently moved here with my family, back from the US. Yeah.
So were you in Seattle prior to that, I take it?
Yes, that's true. I've been in Seattle for quite some time, living there with my family, and then we decided to relocate just in the kind of midst of the Corona chaos. So yeah.
Wow. So you've actually moved very recently back to, I take it's your home, is it?
Yes, it is my home, and yes, we moved just recently, 3 weeks back.
Wow. So tell me a bit about your journey into Microsoft. How did you end up working for Microsoft and even getting to the current role that you're in?
Sure. Kind of a quick tour. So I've actually started in technology way back, like a lot of Israelis, I think. Started over at my army service, and then moved into a few roles that all kind of had technology building. I worked for a few kind of financial sector oriented organization. Then did a few years in HP. And then moved to a startup, and then my first role in Microsoft was actually a role of a TSP. So I was like basically a technical seller. It was a shift from everything I did before. Was a really interesting one because I used to be on the back end of developing software. Then I moved to the kind of foreground, engaging customers and getting to see how they use our software. So it was for Dynamics back when it was the early days of Microsoft Business Application. Was truly an amazing kind of role. And then after a few years of that, I kind of said, this is great, but I want to go back to do what I really love to do, which is developing software. And then I moved to Redmond and started my career back then as a program manager, and did a bunch of roles, within the Dynamics CE family of products. And it was truly got to work on different loads of the application. I've been a while on the mobile side, and then had the chance to be a significant contributor to the whole UCI effort. And then recently, what was it, like 2 years back when we did like the big reshuffle within business application, I joined the sales team. Started leading, the first group there of PM, then, moved to kind of launch the sales insight offering, and ran the group for that for a while, and then the PM group, and then moved recently to kind of oversee the whole product offer for sales, and I'm leading the PM across, our offering there.
Excellent. So first of all, I didn't realize you came into Microsoft as a TSP. Tell me, because I'm just interested personally here about the Israeli market. How big is the demand for Dynamics or Biz Apps within Israel, as in from a consumer perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question. We get it a lot. Interestingly enough, Dynamics in Israel was pretty strong from the get-go. And the reason was that in a way, Israel was the Israeli market kind of starting catching up into business application a bit later than maybe some other markets, like the bigger markets over the UK, the US. And so at that time, there wasn't just, Dynamics was already a valid option for them. In other markets, as I kind of learned over the years, is most of them came early. There was mainly Siebel back then, and everybody kind of was there. Over at Israel, it was a bit. They started gearing up with software around customer relationship management. At the time, we already had an offer in market, so it was a really good period. We actually, we were able to get a few really big customers to join Dynamics really early on. Had a lot of the growing pains coming with it, but was really, it was. We had a significant portion of the market way before we had the same portion of the market, I think, elsewhere.
Gotcha. Okay, I didn't realize, as I say, I know very little about that market. Anyhow, let's switch over to, when you talk about Dynamics 365, you're talking specifically your area of responsibility is Dynamics 365 sales, right? The actual sales finished product application within Microsoft. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the Dynamics 365, application or set of applications for sellers to manage their work. Yeah.
Okay, so I've been working with Dynamics 365 CE since CRM 1.2, so a bit of a while. And last year I wrote a bit of a scathing post around the sales application. And that it was built on 20-year-old technology and nothing has changed. And then, of course, in the last month or so, you seem to be releasing some phenomenal set of features right into the sales application. Tell us about how that came about.
Yeah, so I think what you're seeing from us is definitely a growing a growing effort within the application to revisit some of those core old school concepts that existed there over the years. You're very much right, I think, on the fact that if you look a few years back, or 2 years back, the investment that gone into sales specific scenarios was not as mature or as big as it is right now. And so that effort actually materialized into a set of capabilities and technology that came in the last few months into market, and really rethink a lot of those core construct that sellers used to use.
Right. So for some time, I haven't been able to identify even who's been responsible for this until you've come along and kind of taken over. Do you kind of like have a whole new mandate for where you're going with the sales application?
So I think the sales application for Microsoft, and specifically within the context of overall CE and suite of application, is a very big business for us. Is actually probably one of the top 2 or 3. So it's a big business for Microsoft. A lot of big customers using it. We're seeing tremendous growth coming from a lot of different directions. The current GM, the person running the show, is a person named Ray. He came into Microsoft pretty recently. He's my boss. And basically he's coming from a lot of background in the sales domain. He was doing similar role over at SAP before coming to Microsoft, and he's giving a lot of support and a lot of push to this domain to actually start kind of moving forward into the next level of what it needs to be a market leader. And so that's kind of, I think, what you're seeing in the last few months.
Gotcha. So tell me, if you were to describe Dynamics 365, the sales application, not what it was a year ago, but what it is today, tell us what it is and where you see it growing.
So I think our core focuses are the following. We're trying to first and foremost make sure that we're delivering an app that is useful and friendly and easy to use for sellers. It wasn't the case for a lot of years, I think, across business application, but definitely on sales. So we want to make sure that what you get as a seller is an experience that is easy to use, is intuitive, is helpful, and get you to do the things the things you need to do, which is selling. And so a lot of focus goes into that domain, and you'll see us putting a lot of effort, around those areas. It has to do with the type of UI that you're going to get from us. It's the type of technology we're going to be focusing on delivering behind the scene, and it's it's the overall experience and investment areas are around those kind of things. We also, as a company, we are strongly anchored on the idea that if you have data coming in, and you have one of the best AI practices in the universe, the combination of both can really power some amazing innovation. And so the unity of data, AI, and then amazing experience really drives phenomenal business applications. So the focus for us is on those core pillars, amazing UI, making sure that data is always going to be there, and not making sellers work hard for the data to come in, and then be able to leverage that with best of class AI that Microsoft has to offer.
Yeah. So, when I was first demoing sales module back in the day, we had a VentureWorks cycles, and it was very much around a concept of a physical product that sellers would be selling. And of course, now we're in a very digital world. There's many products that are digital, whether you're selling SaaS software or any type of digital delivery type application. And really the way I always saw Dynamics 365 sales was based on more the physical type element. How are you seeing that transition now into digital selling, and what new features are you enabling for that environment?
Yeah, I love this question. Two main reasons. First of all, we started that journey into digital sales. A few, I would say, 6 to 8 months back, we started working internally within the group. There's a big group in Microsoft that does digital sales, and we started working with them very closely. We kind of learned some of the key areas where they need support, where the technology that exists today does not does not suffice for what they're trying to do, and we started building technology that kind of helps them and augment the way they do their business, and we learned a lot within that journey. Now, obviously, COVID came in, a few months back, and in a way, all sellers, even the one we used to think about as doing the more traditional type selling, meeting people face to face, shaking hands and all of that, everybody is now becoming a digital seller. And where everybody becomes a digital seller, the fact is that they need very similar tools to the tools that used to be very, very narrowly focused on what we used to call inside sellers, or sellers that work from within the office. So yes, a big shift going there. By the way, I'm going to have a session in Embas just next week, exactly about the digital selling motion and how we support this. But for us, that digital sales is really focused on three core investments. So the first one is an engagement platform. An engagement platform means really that you are able to look at your desktop, and you can find all of the channels you need in order to engage your customers. You don't need to go into different application to be able to pick up the phone or send an email, or chat, or do all of those great things that basically are part of communicating with your customers and helping them and delivering what you need to deliver. So that's kind of the core thing. The second portion of that digital selling motion is that you need to be able to you need to be able to know what you need to focus on. And as the organization grows and the size of the, both the level of engagement and the amount of sellers that conduct this type of selling grow, you need to be able to always have some best practice handy. You need to be able to see, what are kind of the next best customer for you to deal with. What are the best, what are some of the, some recommendation around engaging those customers, and that platform or framework that support those next best action, next best, suggestions, that needs to be really flexible and be able to adjust to kind of the overall customer journey, and take that to effect and kind of put that in. And so that's another piece of the puzzle, and we have a set of capabilities there, and those are going to be enhanced tremendously over the next, release also. And then the kind of the last piece of that, which is very, very important and closes the loop, is that you need to be able to always monitor what's going on. You as a seller, and also, the organization as a whole. And by monitoring, we talk about forecasting and the ability to kind of measure where we stand against, a specific quota that was given to us, the level of engagement that we see, not just from a seller perspective, but also from the buyer side. And then also tuning into those sales conversation and actually extracting from them insights about what's working, what's not working, where we need to make more progress.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. So just for our listeners, this podcast will be first published after MBAS, so you can always go back to the MBAS recordings. Most likely they should be up there, and you'll be able to listen to Amit's session that he presented this year at MBAS. So that's brilliant. Tell me about, for the day-to-day seller, the people that are going to be in the software every day, because, for a long time that the CRMs have been seen as a way for management to monitor the performance of sales staff, and therefore, and part of the kind of drawback for it, salespeople felt they were often updating the system, but really getting little value. How do you see, what are the new tools that you're providing to really drive value to end salespeople?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And so the tool set that we provide sellers as part of this, as part of digital sales in general, but not just for digital sales. We do hope that eventually, COVID would end and people would go back to also meeting people face to face and having some of that really important engagement. A significant portion of the sales domain, would still keep doing that, and I think this is a buying pattern that would not go away. But let's start from the digital selling motion and then move into that more relationship type selling, as we used to call it, portion. So for digital sellers, the first thing is a new experience that we just shipped for preview. It's experience we call Sales Accelerator, and really what it does, it brings into one UI. Four main constructs. So the first thing is something we call an intelligent work use. Think about that as kind of your inbox for everything you need to do. So all of your kind of top leads, top activity with opportunities that you're running, they're all ordered in one simple to kind of see, simple to use list that you can just go one by one and mark as done, right? So you can go one by one, each of those, customer by customer. That list is obviously smartly ordered by both some backend logic that your organization can define, some AI, models that kind of support that. And then as a seller, you can reorder or change and define exactly how you want to see, that list of the things you need to do, today, the things you need to do tomorrow, and so forth. The second piece for that experience is what we call a holistic view of the customer, right? We talk a lot about this customer 360 view, but here what we do is we bring all of that into one interface. It's the Dynamics UCI experience, and we package it with all of the information you need in order to be able to engage successfully with a given customer. you can obviously, kind of use in that context, our customer insights offering. And so if you use that, you'll see much more information, across that customer view. And then we ride on top of the omni-channel framework. So, everything, that is coming out of that capability, as part of customer service is also available for sellers. So the ability, to have a soft phone experience within that experience, and an in-context email experience. You'll see us coming with, a capability for SMS and chat experience, and all of that is packed together. And the last piece of that puzzle, when we talk about digital sellers, we also usually talk about a type of selling that is usually being referred to as scale or velocity selling, because the level of engagement usually is 1 to very many. It's like 1 to 400, 1 to 500 accounts. And so what you need is also a lot of automation. You need to be able to do stuff quickly. And what this framework is supplying you is with that capability. So we have something we call sequences, which really, it's kind of a breakdown of what you need to do with a given customer based on some best practices your organization has defined. And that kind of gives you the next best action with that. With that customer. It also allows you to automate some of those processes. So let's assume, the first step is to send an email, and that email usually involves some certain template that you commonly use in your organization. Then that thing is just going to pop up already filled in, just ready for you to send. You can also completely automate that. That's up to the organization. But the idea is that you can start, templatizing those engagement patterns, and then reusing them across your sales org. And as a seller, you need to do less to go and find all of that data. It's just there, it's pre-populated. You just click a send and you go to the next customer. So that's the last piece of that, offering. Now that offering kind of brings to life a lot of our core intelligent capability, just packed into that UI instead of being, some desperate application or technology that you need to stitch together. It's all kind of packed in. So let's give another example there. Conversation intelligence that I believe, we have a few customers that are already kind of familiar with that. We have a few big customers using it. What we do there is we take, we take that experience of having an ability to just launch a phone call to your customers to the next level. Because now we can also transcribe that conversation. We can get insight out of that conversation. We can automatically summarize that conversation and save it back into CDS. We can extract action item and keywords from within that conversation and bring all of that, into a structured data. Stored in CDS that then can be reasoned over with a lot of other, capabilities to actually get a holistic view of what's going on in your business, both from a manager perspective, sales leadership perspective, but also as a seller, you can go back and revisit your conversation, see how you made the pitch, how you compare to other people in your organization, how they make their pitch. One thing we know about sellers, they don't like to waste their time on just some tutorials kind of things, but they do like to learn from others. They do like to learn from other sellers that, that are doing, good job. And so we kind of supply them with those capabilities around conversation.
Yeah, interesting. Last year I was at MBAS when it was in Atlanta, and there was a crowd there called Outreach.io. And a lot of this sounds a lot around that high velocity selling with, using the sequences and taking those next best steps. Outreach.io, high velocity selling is what Salesforce calls their kind of functionality. That's around $75 per user, and when I've done the pricing around it. Is this going to be another add-on pricing SKU from Microsoft, or is it just going to be part of Sales Insights?
Yeah, so we Microsoft really believe that simplicity of pricing model is core to what to how we win in the market. No, we're not introducing yet another SKU and not trying to put that in a different place. For us, it's three layers of pricing. A very simple one we call Sales Pro. The Sales Enterprise core offering, and then that Sales Premium with Sales Insights. That's our third tier, and those experiences are all going to be part of that.
Yeah, fantastic. What are you hearing from the market so far, and those that are been in whether it's the preview, the private previews, etc.? What's the initial feedback you're getting?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, and again, it's hard now to decouple between the COVID impact here to what used to be just a growing selling motion in the market in general. But yes, pretty tremendous. We get significant really big customers trying it out in preview. A lot of excitement, a lot of very good feedback as well around certain capabilities. They need more in certain areas. But definitely a lot of excitement.
Mm-hmm. So what do you see as the typical type of companies that are going to get the most value out of, sales acceleration, the sequences are selling at scale? What type of companies have you kind of done some research that you see this is really going to hit some sweet spots for them?
So I think that it's kind of hard to define a very specific type of customers from perspective of like the market you're in or the industry you're in. But what we do see is that over the recent few years, if you look across the sales domain, there's a very steady growing momentum into becoming more and more digital selling. Now I'll give you a few examples. So first of all, what you find is that those really occur when you have what we call scale selling motion. So you have a relationship between a seller to a buyer, which is a one to really significant portion of many. Those tends to also impact the level of complexity of the product you're selling. They're usually hard, closely coupled with usually pricing of the product themselves. There's also an aspect of how long of a sales cycle you have for those type of product. Those tend to be shorter, sales cycles. And there's also an impact for the specific way that business is run. Some businesses are more are easier to move into a less face-to-face type engagement than others. So all of those are kind of impacting the type of customers that are using it. But in a general term, what I can share with you is that we're seeing a lot of companies that used to do only the relationship selling motion or only kind of relying on the face-to-face one-to-one meetings. Moving some portion of their business, not all of it, but some portion of their business to be run from those type of digital selling motion. Microsoft gone through that same journey about 2 years ago, and that group in Microsoft is growing in size, and we see similar customers. Similarly, we see the same motion in other customers, kind of moving into it. So yes, it's definitely a growing business across, not just for us. A lot of customers do those change.
Yeah. And I think, from a timing wise, with COVID and there's going to be a lot of companies that are going to contract and they're not going to afford necessarily, how would you say, salespeople that are, of very high salaries, etc. If they're having to contract to be economically viable, this is potentially going to give them a tool set that would allow perhaps a lesser skilled resource to operate from an inside sales perspective, right? But still tackle a large volume of accounts and pursue them using this tool set rather than that field sales force, because who knows how long things will be locked down for. Do you are you seeing that? And I know you've mentioned it already, but how much are you going, this is COVID that's leading or this demand, or is it the technology standing on its own 2 feet, so to speak?
Yeah, so I think again this motion in market started way before COVID, and that motion got some amazing statistics behind it. Like more growth in those type of inside selling motion versus the more legacy type selling motion over the recent few years. And you've seen that that motion in market kind of catching up way before COVID. I do agree that COVID definitely put a lot of companies now into trying those technology faster and trying out those type of selling motion just faster than they probably would have gone to try it out before. I want to be clear. I truly believe that this thing is not a complete replacement of the whole type of selling or the type of relationship selling. Relationship selling is a very, very big portion. There's certain type of product, certain type of market, certain type of behaviors that are not going to change and shouldn't change, right? I'm pretty sure that you're not, you're not going to buy a complete enterprise solution, over the phone. I do believe that those type of things, that certain type of products, certain type of selling motions will still rely very heavily on the relationship type selling, but there's other products, there's other type of selling that can definitely move into that, and that's where I think the growth is coming from.
A lot of the research out there in this area shows that, one, it makes CRM systems about 40% more sticky when you've got a sequencing tool built into the application, because sales folks really start seeing the benefits and nothing drops through the gaps. When they're pursuing opportunities or qualifying leads, for example. What and the other part of it is that there's been some time since salespeople really had some good tools. We're seeing customer service get a whole bunch of tooling from Microsoft, particularly even around the omni-channel side. And I see you're bringing omni-channel now into the sales mix. Does that mean things like, conversation intelligence, auto transcription, keyword identification? Is that all going to come across and become part of the sales insights module as well?
So what we do with conversation, so first of all, our conversation intelligence offering is actually spanning to the customer service domain as well. So it's actually started from sales and now kind of spanning into customer service and allowing customer service rep to get a lot of those same same set of capabilities. As for the other motion, the motion to bring in the omni-channel experience into sales, yes. So this is like what you're seeing. We take best practices from customer services around omni-channel, we bring that into sellers' hand, and then we take a lot of the best practices from conversation intelligence that have been running for a while on the sales side, and we move those type of technology into customer service to allow organization to kind of benefit on both ends. There is a lot of similarity between those type of the type of reps on both ends. And as such, there is a lot of learning and mutual beneficial features. There's also a lot of areas where they do something unique for the org, and in those places, we need to adapt. We need to be very, we need to give them the right tools to do their job, which is again different in those portions. So that's what you're kind of seeing from us.
Yeah. Is this going to play in and become part of playbooks within sales as well? As in, and I'm talking about sequences fully. When playbooks first came out, it was a bit of a shell of a product rather than, it didn't have all the activity types. It didn't have any kind of ability to slug subject lines and things like that we've traditionally had in the past. Is this going to add a level of intelligence to playbooks as well?
Yeah, so you're kind of hitting on all of the right points. Playbook was launched, kind of a while back, and was the first version of that notion of trying to create a connection of activities that are being triggered based on something that happened. That thing and Cadence is very much one of the same. Cadence tends to be a bit more sequential than playbooks, but in a way they come together into one one thing. So yes, our intention over time is to kind of bring those two capabilities into one interface that then going to give you the ability to really build some powerful playbooks, very much like you can do today with Cadence. That whole experience, by the way, is run on top of Power Automate. So you can actually imagine how much power that thing has when you can take this both on the UI level to a seller doing something, to a seller doing something, and then you can also completely automate certain processes with the power of Power Automate supporting.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Interesting. Will Power Virtual Agents also ultimately plug in via the omni-channel direct to sales rep? So, for example, somebody's gone to your website, they're making an inquiry, rather than fill out the old way would be fill out a form and wait 24 hours maybe for somebody to come back. Is there potential now for, an online sales agent to automatically take a handoff from a virtual agent?
Yeah, so the intent is to deal with the whole kind of lead management aspect and how fast you react to those leads as part of our next release. Yes, there is a bunch of stuff there. It's not just about connecting the ability from a website to get to a seller quicker. It's also you need to be able to route it to the right person, and you need that person to react fast enough. We're trying to close that whole loop. With a set of capabilities that's going to come to market. But yes, what you just mentioned is definitely one of those scenarios that we would like to tackle, and many more. By the way, if you look today at some of the statistics around the lead management in Dynamics and how fast companies are kind of acting on leads, you see that there is a definite place for an improvement there, and we're trying to tackle that with a set of capabilities, as mentioned, to make that whole thing streamlined and be faster and easier.
Yeah. Excellent. Tell me about forecasting and pipeline analytics.
Oh, so that one is kind of a pretty amazing journey that we went through. So we looked at forecasting for a while. It was was a gap in the offering for Dynamics for a while, and when we looked at it, the one approach that we could have taken, very much like what you see from Salesforce, was to say, all right, let's develop some set of skills that's going to give you an ability to check mark that forecasting, check mark. But really, when it comes to enterprise type forecasting scenarios, we would rely on partners to take that load. That you see today happening, kind of on the Salesforce side of the house. When we kind of looked at it and obviously did our due diligence, talked to a lot of customers transitioning from Salesforce to the Dynamics, business application, we kind of quickly learned that forecasting and the type of capabilities that they need there needs a much more flexible framework that actually can adapt to different type of forecasting that organization tend to do there, and put a lot of put some significant complexities to how you need to build it from the get-go in order to support those. And so the task we took upon ourselves was to make sure that when we deliver forecasting capabilities, it's not going to be just a check mark on that line item, but actually deliver a meaningful, useful set of capabilities, and that's exactly what we did. We launched a preview, and then we went GA just recently, before March. We have an enterprise-grade forecasting capabilities today that kind of goes all the way from what we usually call bottom-up forecasting or manual forecasting, where every seller take accountability for their pipeline and then define what goes into the forecast, and then a manager can overrule. And we have a very sophisticated way of rolling this up, and you can completely customize the roll-ups and and how to kind of define them. And we took that all the way up to predictive forecasting and the ability for running AI models that look at all of your historic data and existing data and start kind of drawing the lines for you for where you're heading if you're kind of running in a certain pace of selling. So you can actually use both.
Yeah, awesome. So what about your thoughts on mobility from a sales perspective?
So mobility as I mentioned, right, is a huge portion of relationship selling. And we kind of, by the way, walking into COVID, our first, when we met, as a team and we discussed, how is that going to impact mobile? Our first reaction was, all right, probably people are not as mobile, right? They're staying at home. They're probably not as mobile. Funny enough, when we started kind of engaging customers in the recent, month or two, we kind of discovered that it's almost the opposite. People find mobile even more important these days because working from home also means that you're not always in front of your computer, right? You have children with you, you have the family, you go away, but you still want to be able to be on top of what's going on. You want to check and you want to do and take those quick action. Now, Dynamics in the past, the approach for mobile was, kind of relying solely on the UCI experience and saying, UCI would suffice for a good mobile application. But honestly, I think that approach was limited in our ability to really support core sales scenarios because even though UCI is a very powerful platform that allow you to highly tailor and bring a lot of customization into the environment, it's not always as useful when you are on the go and you just do the same type of task over and over again. And you need them to be very fluent, very easy to do. So we're just coming into a private preview of a new mobile application, which is a joint effort between the sales team and the platform team. The main experience that you're going to see there is basically composed of two main experiences. We have what we call a native experience. That native experience is focusing on those core scenarios that sellers on the go do all of the time, right? Is to check my calendar, see my upcoming appointment, the ability to to see recent records, the ability to drill down and into a meeting and get the full context from Dynamics, the ability to capture notes and information after a meeting. All of those are going to be native UI. Very easy to do, very slick, very fast. And then with that, or within the same package, you also have a full seamless flow into UCI where you need the more complex information, the more complexity of data set. When you need the more the longer view into certain things, you can just go into UCI and see it over there. That whole thing is again just the one app. And we're launching this for private preview right now with the expectation to fast go into public preview as well. So that's our a new mobile story from us.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
really exciting. What excites you most about what you're building next?
I think all of it. When you look at all of the great set of capabilities that are coming, there's some significant innovation. But I think for me, when I look at areas of the investment that we're making, probably the one that excites me the most is when we look at the UI framework that we had and rethink them, because I remember my days doing sales, and I remember how much time it took me to just go and do a simple update or just to view my pipeline and quickly kind of go through and clean it up. And it's not because that type of work just need to take that time. It's really because all the kind of legacy CRM haven't really put seller in the front in their front view to kind of tackle those type of tasks. And so for me, the place where I find that is like the most exciting work we do is where we take those core scenarios that sellers do all of the time and we bring them into life in the application in a faster, easier way for them to do that work. And you'll see a lot of that coming from us in the next few releases. So a lot of exciting stuff there.
That's awesome. What are the opportunities for ISVs to build on Dynamics 365 sales?
So ISVs are a very big portion of our business, and we see a truly overwhelmingly positive motion coming from other ecosystem into the Dynamics ecosystem over the last 2 years or so. Significant leading ISVs in their business coming into this ecosystem and starting to build on top of our technology. We are a platform company first and foremost. And so for us, building, the right of tools to allow ISVs to reuse and then build their own logic on top of it is kind of core to what we do. So over at the sales side, what that means is that you take something like our newly launched sales accelerator experience. You'll find that experience can be highly customized, tailored, and then logic can be built on top of it to actually augment that. And we're actually working with a bunch of ISVs right now that says, this is great, but we cater for this market, and they also need this and this to be able to be successful. Or you look at something like our guided selling solution, and you can see some of the leading ISV in sales enablement already launching experiences on top of that, guided selling capability to actually, to help sellers that has a specific requirement, and so we are very eager to get in touch with the ISV. We work closely with a lot of them, and if there's in your listeners, other ISVs that believe that they want to do something together, we're more than keen to work with them and make sure that everything we deliver is open and easy for them to use to do their magic on top of.
Excellent. We talked about MBAS being, you're going to do a session which will be recorded, we assume, and of course people can watch it live. They won't be able to because this podcast, as we say, coming out later. What other resources are available for people to kind of get up to speed on this new functionality features, and how can they get it put into their own environment or into a sandbox so they can start trialing it?
Yeah, so for all information that you need, the best place to start from is our website, and they're publicly available. We keep on updating them and kind of having the right links to go from there to any demo experience, trial experience, so you can really quickly get anything you need from there. As for trying those out, so for everything that is on public preview, all you need to do is to go into the public preview setting area and just say, yes, light it up in my environment. And then those things are going to be available for you to try on. For stuff that are on private preview, we usually have, we notify that you can register for that, and then it comes in, and we work with you to light up those experiences. For all of those, there's just those general bug resources available to use for getting that type of information.
That's so good. Amit, who do you recommend as a guest for the podcast in future?
I think a few that comes to mind. First of all, Ray, my boss, a pretty amazing person, has a lot of knowledge and experience in business application in general and sales. So definitely one person I would try and get on the podcast. Other people, I think you already had a lot of the great leaders from the platform side of the house. So I think, what, one more person that you probably want to talk, I don't know if you had the chance to interview Oren Ringler. He's the CPO for CE, so he's kind of the chief product officer. He does a lot of big innovation projects across, and so between him and Ray, you'll see a lot of both domain knowledge and a view into the future of what's coming in. Definitely those two, I think, should be on your list.
Fantastic. Okay, you ready for some quick fire questions before we wrap up?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. Would you rather win the lottery or live twice as long?
Twice as long.
Okay, would you, when you die, what would you want to be remembered for?
That I've made a lot of people happy.
Nice. If you could only drink one type of alcohol for the rest of your life, what would you choose?
Oh, beer.
What's the wildest party you've ever been to?
Yeah, I grew up in something called kibbutz in Israel. I had the chance. I had, I don't know, most of your, Anyway, I've been to some really wild parties. So, yeah.
Awesome. What's your guilty pleasure?
My guilty pleasure, I like expensive chocolate.
Nice, nice. Okay, here's your last one. What book has made the biggest impact in your life?
Um, the most recent one was a book about kind of education and how you develop a kind of a growing mindset with children. It's something that I got a reference, I think, somewhere from reading, I think, one of Bill Gates's list, and kind of got into, and it's pretty amazing. And so, yeah, that's kind of the one that makes the most impact on mine.
Awesome. Amit, it's great. It was great to have you on the show. If people want to connect with you on social media, where can they find you?
LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is one of the best channel for kind of interacting with me, or getting any feedback or talking to me. I'm always there and be very happy to engage.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you've not left a rating for me on iTunes, can you please do that? Just navigate to nz365guy.com/iTunes, and that'll take you straight to the iTunes page where you can leave that feedback and or rating. Full show notes for this episode can be found at nz365guy.com/192. Until next time, have a great week.